I am showing you my dehydrated squash, and that's what I am working on this morning. Welcome to my kitchen. On the stove, I have a pot of water with a lid on it, and inside that pot of water, I have a colander, which is what I'm going to use to help steam my squash to get it ready for dehydration. And basically, what I am doing at this point is just trimming off the ends and cutting the squash into 1/4 inch slices. This is crooked neck summer squash. It's just a yellow squash. It's doing well in the garden. I'm using it every day to, supplement my side dishes of my meat. And I'm using it to grill. I'm also using it baking and putting it in some stews and soups. You can see me walking to the camera, and behind the camera, I have my bucket of scraps that I collect throughout the day that I actually, at the end of the day, take out to my pigs. Anyway, I'm cutting up my squash just to get it ready for dehydration. Basically, for the summer squash, the first step is to wash it, which I had already washed it before I started putting on the video. And of course, after washing it, I trim the ends, which basically means I'm just cutting off each end piece, and then I'm cutting the squash into 1/4 inch slices. Now, when you are preparing your squash for dehydration, the first thing you're going to do to get ready for drying vegetables at home is to blanch it. And there's two ways to blanch. You can either steam blanch it or water blanch it. For me, it is easier to water blanch. And again, I'm walking back into my scrap bucket for my pigs and throwing the trimming off into it. Um, as you can see, the pot has already started to steam, and I am going to be blanching it by steam. And once you put it in the colander to blanch the squash by steam, you're going to steam it for about 2.5 to 3 minutes. And so I am laying it in there, and I'm trying to lay it in and place it in a single layer. I'm trying not to have the squash overlapping the other squash. It's just better for it to steam and get all blanched. Now, you can also water blanch it. If you decide to water blanch it, it really is so much quicker. It takes about a half a minute, believe it or not. But to me, I enjoy steam blanching. It's just easier for me. Now, once you do blanch it, estimated drying time is probably about 10 to 12 hours. Here I am bringing you over to the squash so that you can see how I am putting it in there in a single layer. But as I was telling you, it takes about 10 to 12 drying time, 10 to 12 hours. It really depends on the initial moisture content of the squash, the particular dehydrator you use. So drying times can vary, and also drying times will also vary if you're using a conventional oven. And conventional oven could obviously take twice as long, and it really depends on the air circulation. Now, I put the lid back on it, and I'm getting a towel and washing my hands constantly. What you don't see before I had started preparing the squash is that I cleaned everything. I wiped down all my stove, even wiped down the knobs of my stove knobs to turn it on and off. And I'm just now moved my bucket over so it's more in reach for my little pig bucket, my scrap bucket. And right now I'm actually starting to got some green beans, and I'm snapping off each end of the green beans, and I am also dividing it and splitting it in the trim off of it, because that's kind of tough, that little line that you trim off of it. Once you snap the ends off, you can feel that little line. And I'm discarding that and putting it in my little bucket. And those are green beans that I had picked from our garden as well. And that's where I got the squash from. And we're also eating green beans in stews, fresh. We're also eating green beans just cooked with a little smidgen of butter and a little bit of garlic and salt with our meat. But we also get some green beans, quite abundance of it. So I want to preserve it for the winter use as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dehydrate it as well. And so basically you're just watching me snap the green beans and get them ready for use for dehydration. And you can also dehydrate green beans. Green beans are fair to good suitability for dehydration, and I will also be steam blanching them. And then after I steam blanch them, I will put them in my freezer to cool down, so they'll have a better shape about them and a better texture. And then I will put them on my dehydrator. So that's what I am doing here. Dehydrating vegetables is basically vegetables that are preserved by drying. For vegetables, drying time is crucial to tenderness. The longer the drying time, the less flavorful and the poorer the product may become. To hasten drying, you can make the product a little bit smaller and make it more uniform cut pieces. Now I am taking the squash that has been steam blanched and I am putting it directly onto my dehydrating tray. And I am laying these squash in a single layer, trying to get some little bit of space between each squash so they're not overlapping, not touching, so that air circulation can be among all of that cut squash. Because vegetables are dried until they are brittle, you're drying them so they're about 10% of the moisture remains, and that allows for no microorganisms to grow. And so you're wanting it to be as uniform as possible. Now with squash, part of the squash will have a smaller end. Here's a picture of what I'm showing. I have it in a single layer. As I was saying, part of the squash end is smaller and thinner than the bulb or the bigger end of the squash, so it's kind of hard to have uniform pieces with them. I finished putting my load of my first batch of squash that was steam blanched, and now I'm putting in my second one. And each time I fill up the tray of my dehydrator, I'm just putting it right into my dehydrator. My dehydrator is already plugged in, ready to go. In the summer months, every day I am using that dehydrator. I am dehydrating tons of things, whether it's garlic, squash, green beans, any fruit, pears, or anything. You will see that little dehydrator going most days in the summer. Now, I'm now still working on my green beans. I'm still snapping off the ends of my green beans, getting them prepped. I had already previously washed them and had them dried, and now I'm just snapping off the ends of them and continuing that. And let me talk to you about preparing vegetables. Lots of vegetables are suitable for drying. Dry vegetables as soon as you can, as you harvest them. To prepare them, you're going to wash them in cool water. Most vegetables, get them trimmed up on the ends. Some vegetables you'll peel. The squash, of course, I'm not peeling it, but some vegetables you will be peeling. And then, of course, you're going to cut, slice, or you're going to shred that vegetable according to each vegetable that you want. You're going to remove any fibrous or woody portions. And if you're doing pears, you're going to core them, or so that it's, and of course, so they're uniformed as much as possible. And of course, if you have any bruised areas or dented areas or unsightly areas, you can cut those out and put them to the side like I do in that dark blue bowl for my pigs that I feed to them at the end of the day when I'm feeding them. When you're keeping your pieces uniform in size, so they'll be able to dry the same, right? If you are unsure about the sizes, making it uniform, you can always use a food slicer or a food processor. And I'm just eyeballing it. I just do the best that I can. You want to prepare only as many vegetables as you can be dried at one time. So you don't want to don't want to get your squash, a whole bounty of squash, and slice them all in 1/4-inch slices, and you're not able to dry them, all of them at the one time. You'll have to go and make 2 or 3 days of drying. You just want to cut what you can dry at that one given amount of time. Now, my dehydrator I picked up at a garage sale. Obviously, you can buy your dehydrator new, or you can be like me, look at it at a garage sale or secondhand stores such as the Salvation Army or Goodwill. If you have a bounty of crop of vegetables that have came in, and you're unable to dry it all or process it all in that one day, you can always hold those vegetables on the counter, or even after washing them. They can be on the counter, or you can go ahead and put them in the refrigerator to have them stay fresh so that you can actually process them another day. After you wash and you prepare your vegetables or fruit for drying, the longer you hold them, they will lose quality and nutrients. The longer that you hold a piece of fruit or piece of vegetable before actually eating it. Now, I am getting in my refrigerator and I'm getting out beet juice. Oh, I love beet juice. I digged out some beets out of one of my garden beds, and there I am pouring myself a nice glass of bright red beet juice. Good for the heart, good for the health, and of course great for dehydration. Very good. And I love cold beet juice, slightly sweetened with sugar. On my back burner, I have some fresh beet juice that I am adding into my pitcher there, and I'm topping it off. Beet juice is just really good, tastes good. I love drinking it every day. Makes me feel good that I'm doing something good for my body. And inside of that kettle are the actual beets. And I'm going off outside of that camera view, and I am getting a little bit of sugar because I like my beet juice sweetened back a little bit. Now, if sugar is not in your diet, or you can't take it, or any of your loved ones should not have that much sugar, you can always cut it back even less sugar, or add honey to it, or just skip adding any sweetener to it and just eating it in its natural state. I'm pulling out one of my big spoons that I use to stir it up, getting all of that sugar mixed uniformly in there. When I'm in the kitchen, I am always multitasking. Here you see me dehydrating squash, getting green beans ready for processing, making beet juice. When you are in your kitchen and you're a homesteader, a mom, dad, whatever, life is always busy, and that's why you got to take good care of yourself. Make sure you get extra vitamins from beet juice, from fruits and vegetables that you grow yourself without any pesticides and herbicides. Anyway, I got it stirred up good, and I'm going to taste it a little bit of that bright red beet juice and see if it's sweet enough, not too sweet, tastes good, and it does enough to dust off. And I'm gonna put that and make sure that beet juice cools down. I'm gonna put that beet juice back in my refrigerator to have it ready for the next time I need a cool drink while I'm working there in the kitchen or out on the garden or in the farm. And so I'm toting it back into the refrigerator to keep it nice and cool. You can see I am wearing an apron. I wear an apron when I am working in my kitchen so that I'm keeping myself clean and that my clothes stay clean. And when you're working in the kitchen, that's where you're preparing all your food at. And so you want to be as clean as possible, not only with hand washing, wiping counters, but your clothes as well. I'm picking out the rest of that squash. This is my second tray, probably my last tray of squash for the day. Getting that in a single layer, making sure they're not touching each other so the air can be circulating around it. And it looks like I got all of it. Now, when you have little pieces that are small, when you're doing any sort of vegetable, you can always lay it perpendicular to the holes that are in your dehydrator tray, so it's less tendency to fall down. And I'm just stacking that right up there. I'm going to put my lid on my dehydrator. Got 2 trays going, and I am making sure that I'm going to top off and make some more beet juice. I'm going to put some more water into my kettle, and that kettle is probably 2 handfuls of fresh beets that I picked from my garden. And I'm going to put some more fresh water on it so that I can have some fantastic beet juice going all day. And so I am getting that going in the background as I am working in my kitchen. The book that I went to go get is called So Easy to Preserve. It was printed by the University of Georgia in their Cooperative Extension Department, and that book is just about preserving food, and there's the cover of it. I've had this book for at least 10 years. Basically, it tells you how to preserve all kinds of food by canning, pickled, making jellied products, freezing, drying. They even have preservation books on food preservations. They also have DVDs and more. I bought the 5th edition, I think it was, back in 2011 or so. And I mean, they're always doing research in the area of food preservation. And based on that research, they're making recommendations. And of course, with that always continual research, things may get changed and get updated. And so you can, contact your county extension office periodically for the most up-to-date food preservation information, or you can use the soeasytopreserve.com website, homefoodpreservation.com website, or any, your local county extension agency may have other information. And it just gives you tons of information on it. And I'm showing you a table to drying vegetables at home, what types of vegetables, how to prepare the vegetable, whether it needs to be blanched, steamed, and how the drying times are. Packed full of information. I've enjoyed it for many years. Now, to dehydrate the summer squash is going to take about 10 to 12 hours in the dehydrator. Now, as for the green beans, remember the blanching times for steam again was 2.5 minutes, and the water blanching was 2 minutes. Now, the estimated drying time in the dehydrator's 8 to 14 hours. And when I first started dehydrating, that was hard to know. Hey, is it ready at 8? Is it ready at 14, 10, 12? That just kind of takes practice, and you learn as you go with that. Now, a food dehydrator is just really a small electrical appliance for drying foods indoors. Right now, I am got these green beans, and I am putting them inside my steam blanching. I got that coriander in there, and I'm just rolling them off there, and I'm going to kind of put them in single layer. I'm going to use my hands, cleaned, washed hands, and put them out a single layer as best I can so they're not overlapping each other. Dehydrators are, designed to dry foods fast. That's how it looks. And you can find them, like I said, at garage sales, secondhand, Goodwill, Salvation Army. You can also find them at discount department stores as well. Now, when you're preparing the vegetables, after you blanch it, whether it's steam or water blanched, you can also briefly submerge the vegetables in cold water, only long enough to kind of stop the cooking action. I did not do that here, and sometimes I don't do that. And really, that is to preserve the color. By all means, feel free to do that. I'm here having a sip of coffee. Now I'm pulling out my green beans, and I'm arranging them on my dehydration tray, and I'm going to put them in single layer, trying not to overlap them again, so that they have room for that air to circulate and dry them efficiently. There is an additional step to the process of drying green beans. After the green beans have been blanched, you need to put them in a single layer, and you can freeze them for 30 or 40 minutes and then start the drying process. I think one of the hardest things about drying vegetables is determining the dryness of vegetables. Vegetables should be dried until they are brittle or crisp. Some vegetables actually shatter if you hit them with a hammer. At this stage, they should contain about 10% moisture. Because they are so dry, they do not need conditioning. You can see how I put them in a single layer. Drying vegetables at home just takes practice of the feel for it, how does it look, and when is it ready. And it's going to be, you want them to be brittle. That's it. You want them to be brittle and crisp. There are different types of dehydrators. You can have oven drying. You can also have a homemade dehydrator. Now, as I am dehydrating my green beans, I'm putting a second load in. I am also cleaning up my kitchen. I have to double duty, multitask all day long. I think that's most people. I am sweeping floors in the kitchen, but I try to remain in the kitchen, doing what I can in the kitchen to keep an eye on my food as it's being processed and cooked. I also am off camera now, putting away dishes, and like I said before, sweeping, spot mopping, And here I am going back. I forgot to put those 2 trays of green beans back into the freezer for 30 or 40 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and get them in there. And homesteading is just getting your house and farm or your backyard ready to be self-sufficient. And there we go, getting that second bit done. Now, after I finish with my and that's been 30 minutes, and I am pulling it out and going to put it on the tray, my dehydrate tray, and put the lid on it. After I've spent some time here in the kitchen, I will be going out to clean my vacation rentals. I have guests checking out of the farmhouse today and the cabin today, and I'm going to have a quick turnover, getting all those sheets washed and towels washed and getting new bedding on them, making sure all the dishes are washed over there in the cabin and in the farmhouse, and everything's swept and mopped. And I want to encourage you, if you have not been out to Gomez Family Farm, to come out, book a night with us to stay at the farmhouse or the cabin. We have a self-guided farm tour. We have lots of wildlife, nature trails. We have a pond. We have some boats, a little canoe, paddle boat, a pedal boat also. You can go and just sit back and relax and, just see us out in the garden working. And if I'm not out in the garden, I'm inside the house doing stuff like this, preparing foods or cleaning. And of course, sharing information and so that others can learn how to do what I do, how to be a homesteader, how to be self-sufficient. So I encourage you, if you have not, once again, if you have not been out to our farm, to come on out. We'd love to have you here. And if you have any questions about our farm, any questions about homesteading, questions about animal husbandry, questions about gardening, preserving, or anything about the homesteading lifestyle, please just ask. And with homesteading, as with anything else, it just takes practice. Here I have some green beans that I did not process. Their shell was getting too dry, and I'm going to let them go ahead and dry in the kitchen, and I will use that to make seeds and replant in the future. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this bit of my homesteading life, and here we go, pulling that out and getting that ready to go. Thank you, and I hope this has been very beneficial to you.